All right, so they're battling it out right now in court about what evidence can actually be submitted in this trial that alleges that Hillary Clinton's lawyer lied to the FBI about the fact that he was working for, that's right, Hillary Clinton. He billed her for the hours, actually. Here to discuss all of it is a world-class guest, Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch and the author of A Republic Under Assault. Tom, great to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, good to be with you again. Thank you.
What do you make of this Durham investigation? We sure are getting a lot of information out of it now.
Yeah, look, Hillary did it, and she's the ghost of the trial. Her campaign was the reason this material was brought forward to the FBI. And what Durham is trying to do, he's suggesting that, look, Sussman, to the degree he has any plausible deniability that this was, he just ran into this information. So when he conveyed it to the FBI, he really didn't have a good idea as to how it originated. No, Durham is saying. They were meeting repeatedly on this very issue, and it was obviously part of a political campaign operation, which wasn't disclosed. In fact, he said, I'm not there on behalf of a client. He was there on behalf of a client, namely the Clinton campaign and arguably Democratic National Committee. So to me, Sussman is, to me, the big issue is, in Sussman's case, is that we now know that the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton and their agent Fusion GPS are fighting with Durham to withhold information about what they were doing against Trump. So they're citing privileges. And, in the meantime, you have the DOJ and all the Democrat media establishment trying to put people in jail for citing privileges objecting to the January 6th inquiry.
Yes.
While at the time Hillary Clinton's citing privileges to keep her campaign out of a criminal trial involving her campaign.
Okay, well, the left always says that if you have nothing to hide, then what are you so scared of? Just release the documents. Show us what you were up to. So with that being the way for us to understand this case, Tom Fitton, it looks pretty explicit. This is a gigantic conspiracy.
Well, you can have privileges that are legitimate, and you can promote them and try to preserve and protect them. In this case, they don't have privileges that are legitimate. This is a political operation that was designed to get information out to the media. And what the Clinton campaign and her lawyers are suggesting is, this was done for litigation. It wasn't done for litigation. It was done for dissemination. And the dissemination, obviously, was not only the big media, but the FBI.
Yeah. We were talking to Chuck Ross, who you know, a little bit ago, and I played for him some of this NPR segment. I won't play it again now, but from 2019, it involved the Fusion GPS founders Glenn Simpson and Peter Fritsch. And it's interesting because they're talking with Terry Gross, the host on NPR, about the fact that the dossier compiled by Christopher Steele intended to damage Trump and allege that he was connected to Russia and colluding with them. She kind of tried to offer them an out. She's like, hey, wait a second. The dossier didn't even leak until after the election, so it couldn't have influenced the election. But no, they said, what was really going on was David Kramer, an aide to John McCain, was trying to stop the inauguration entirely by leaking this information to BuzzFeed. He thought that if we get this out in public, we may be able to stop Donald Trump from becoming the president of the United States. A remarkable public admission that's gone very little noticed over these past few years, Tom.
Yeah, I think that's an important story. And, of course, it's obvious, right? They spent 4 years trying to remove Trump from office.
Yes.
Of course, they would take steps to try to remove him before he got into office. And, of course, the other side of that is that you also had the FBI desperately trying to get the dossier confirmed and Trump on the record, specifically through a meeting with Comey about the dossier, because they knew it was going to come out and see it with CNN. So this was an awful hit job on then incoming President Trump, and we're being lectured on coups, right, and insurrections and sedition. I don't know how that wouldn't fall into those categories, that activity by the Obama gang, and frankly McCain's ally there.
Yeah, just disgraceful behavior. And as you point out, they're the ones who are trying to subvert the will of the people quite explicitly now. And
to be clear, it was all a lie.
Yes.
So it wasn't like they were trying to get the truth out. It was obviously false, and they all knew it was false.
Absolutely. Let me move on to another issue that you're investigating. It's a troubling one. The National Institutes of Health is reported to have apparently colluded with the University of Pittsburgh, and it was about trying to manage the way the public understood their research on baby parts, which they refer to as human fetal remains. Can you tell us what your investigation has found?
Well, back in August of last year, we uncovered with our partners, the Centers for Medical Progress, in a lawsuit, FOIA documents showing that the University of Pittsburgh was setting up a tissue hub with taxpayer funds to essentially collect and disseminate fetal tissue. They were essentially collecting organs from unborn human beings killed by abortion. They promoted the fact they had a bandsaw in their program and hundreds of samples. They were excited they had dispersed over 300 fresh samples, and if they could get more money, they could maybe do 725 cases in 1 year. So this was kind of a tissue hub they were promoting. I call it a chop shop. So we exposed that. One of the experiments that we helped expose, and our partner Center for Medical Progress helped expose, was grafting fetal tissue onto mice. And when you see the pictures of it, and I don't suggest anyone see it because it's so upsetting, you see human hair on a mouse. It's just crazy. It's crazy and barbaric.
This is the kind of stuff that sounds like it would be happening in, say, like some sort of mad scientist Chinese lab, and not in the United States of America. But this was happening at the University of Pittsburgh with taxpayer funding.
Yeah, and it goes on in other places as well. And what happened was this got out there. Members of Congress got excited and upset about it. The public was revolted. The University of Pittsburgh tried to do, quote, an investigation, a lot of controversy up there. So they wrote a letter to Francis Collins, who runs NIH, asking for his help in supporting this needed science, right? They use the term science. I write regarding and ongoing efforts to undermine important science using fetal tissue. And this official from Pittsburgh thought the NIH and other institutions should get together to protect this science because they thought the other side, meaning Judicial Watch disclosing through transparency laws what's going on with tax dollars, were putting those who supported this barbaric fetal research in a corner. And of course, NIH responded positively, and it looks like they were trying to set up meetings to coordinate the response and the collusion between our federal government and the University of Pittsburgh that was trying to put itself out there as a hub for collecting, harvesting, and trafficking fetal organs.
I mean, if this kind of activity was in the public interest and the public good, they'd be proud to share it with the public, what they're up to, but they're not. They're trying to conceal it.
No, we have to sue for records like this. So, pretty much everything we get is involuntarily disgorged, and the University of Pittsburgh, the FDA has been funding this. And so where does this stand? Well, under the Trump administration, they turned off the money for this type of research. The Biden administration announced that they'd be turning the spigot back on. It's not clear if the money started flowing, but your tax dollars has helped collect and traffic human organs. And not in this case, in another case where there was major funding for this operation, a federal court judge raised questions about whether it was legal or not. So this is potentially criminal activity that's been taking place, not necessarily up in the University of Pittsburgh, but elsewhere, because when you see invoices, Vince, for organs like livers and thymuses, and that's pretty clear they're cutting out craniums. It is nightmarish. I've been doing this for 24 years. I haven't read any more horrific horrific documents as bad as these.
It is just so awful, and for in a hot second they would defend slave labor building their lab equipment if it meant that they would be enriched. You know what I mean? Like literally any atrocity would be totally fine to downplay so long as they can come along and get like a massive checks from the government and then claim they're serving the public good. And meanwhile, what they're really doing is aiding and abetting a genocide. And everyone just nods their heads and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's totally fine." Or the the NIH helps them cover it up. It's grotesque, and it's just I cringe even hearing it.
Well, they're creating, and this is the phrase, humanized mice. I mean, to say that is to condemn it, isn't it? It's an obscenity.
It's funny that they would use that phrase when they don't consider the fetus as human. That's kind of interesting. Thank you very much, Tom Fitton. Really appreciate your time and your research. Please keep serving America as well as you do every day. Thank you, sir.